Hey everybody, welcome to Bestie Book Reviews. I'm here with my bestie Mandy.
And I'm here with my bestie Jessica.
So today we have a fun video. This one is going to be our recommendations for dark romance. So obviously because this is a dark romance recommendation video, you gotta check the triggers. There will be triggers for all of these books. And I do need to say, like, your dark isn't always my dark. Like, you'll see the difference in dark between me and Mandy. It's very different. Each person has their own level of dark. What I think is dark or what Mandy thinks is dark, you might think is like black as midnight, or you might think it's not so bad at all. So to each his own with that one. So definitely check trigger warnings and before you move forward with any of these books. So we both have 7 books each, right? We said 7.
Yes.
Yes. So we have 14 total recommendations for you guys. So make sure that you hit that subscribe button down below before we get started so that you can get all of our bookish content. And without further ado, Mandy, what's your first dark romance?
Okay, so most of my dark romances are 4-star reads for me because it's not really my favorite trope, but I've noticed I'm starting to, like, you're corrupting me. I'm starting to go that way a little bit more.
Yeah.
So my first one is Cruel Idols by Sorcha Black.
Oh, you know what? And I think it's important for us to let everybody know too that I told this is part that I forgot. We know that there's a lot of great dark romances out there that everybody has read or that you see recommended over and over again. But Mandy and I really put forth an effort to make sure that we found great books that had less than 2,000 or less reviews. Is that what we were looking at? I think I have one that's just slightly over that, but we were looking for 2,000 or less, right?
I think so. Mine are all under 5,000. I think all of them are under 5,000, maybe not one.
We just want to make sure that you guys were able to find something that you might not have seen before, so that you would have some kind of have a different recommendation than what's out there. Or maybe these ones are just so old. I don't know. We'll see. Anyhow, that nobody's read them. So, okay, I'm sorry. So Mandy, your first one again?
Cruel Idols by Sorcha Black.
Okay.
Can I keep going or do you have more?
No. I'll think of something. No, go. You're good.
Okay. My book is Cruel Idols by Sorcha Black. I wrote in my notes, dark with an exclamation point. This is about Sadie, who she's living very poor, like she's poor, barely keeping things together. She rides bike, and so she is very young and she's wanting to be a writer. She was in this relationship, things just didn't work out. There's more in the story about it, but she's just really like penny pinching poor. So she hears from somebody that her idol, get it, Cruel Idols, who is an author, he's like her favorite author, is actually staying in a cottage out by this lake. And so she decides, I'm going to bike out there and just see if I can get his autograph. So she bikes out there, nobody's around. So she kind of goes walking around the property, trying to see if she can catch a glimpse of him or something. Well, Vandal, who is her idol, catches her and loses it on her because he thinks that she's obviously there trying to steal his manuscript that he's working on. She's like up to no good, and he like freaks out and basically like refuses to let her leave. Mm-hmm. And she's just kind of confused by this. She's pretty much alone. She doesn't really have a lot of friends and stuff, and that's explained more in the book of what's kind of going on with her. So Vandal ends up calling his friend Zero, who comes and it's like, I don't know what to do with her. I'm not letting her leave. So he forces her to sign a contract that she is going to stay there with him for the month. He will take care of everything. Like, she doesn't have to pay to live there. He'll feed her, all of this stuff. And she can work on writing. And so because she's like penny pinching and has like nothing, her apartment's like falling apart because it's like, you know, she's paying for like a really, really crappy apartment because it's all she can afford. So she's like, okay, fine. but I really wasn't trying to see your book. I just wanted to meet you, and you're an asshole, so I totally regret this now. This is the story of the three of them. Vandal and Zero, we find out very quickly, we're already kind of in this relationship, and they bring Sadie into it. There is a basement, there's intense role playing. It is very dark stuff, like very dark. So that is the story. It was a 4-star read for me. I felt uncomfortable while I was reading, because it is like there is some intense role play throughout this book. So that is my dark read.
Mandy felt uncomfortable, and I'm sitting here taking notes, so I know to start reading it. So
I think I told you to read it. I think you would like it, but
probably, yeah.
I mean,
So if you watched any of our videos, you know that Mandy and I absolutely love Calia Reed and her Surviving Time series. So my first book is by Calia Reed. It's Fairfax.
She wrote a dark book.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's a psychological type thriller, but to me that's dark. So it's called Unravel. Is the first book in her Fairfax series. There's only 2 books out in that series. I don't know when she'll complete it. She's a very intense writer. It takes her a while to get her books out. So this is actually a new adult book, which I don't tend to go for new adult, but this one worked for me. It was a 5-star read. It was published in 2014. So it's older as far as books go. It's almost 10 years old. But this is about Naomi Carradine. Now, if you've read the Surviving Trace series that we've talked about over and over again, I think it's at the very end of book 1. It is mentioned about this Fairfax asylum, or Fairfax mental hospital is what I think they refer to it as. And the Serene's brothers actually mention this neighbor girl, the Carradine and like neighbor girl, and something that happened, and that she's actually at the hospital. So this is her story. She's mentioned in that book, but we're really getting the story. And I'm not sure, I'm assuming this book came before the other one, but that doesn't really matter. So Naomi is in a psych hospital. She will tell you that she is not crazy. She's not sure, like the doctors don't believe her, but she is not crazy. She is we get her story through flashbacks, but she's in this mental hospital, and she is in love with a man named Max, who the doctors are telling her is not real, but to her he is real, and she misses him immensely, and she is in love with him big time. And so you find yourself questioning, like throughout the book, like, is he real? What's really going on? I remember being on like the edge of my seat the whole time I was reading this book. It kept me guessing until the end. There's only 1,900 reviews on this one. There's another guy involved in the book too. I can't remember his name, and I can't remember like the significance of it, because I read this in early 2021. But it was a 5-star. I was on the edge of my seat, trying to figure out, like the whole time, it's trying to figure out what is really going on. It's definitely dark. There are dark themes. I mean, obviously we're doing a dark romance video. So like we said, check the triggers, but so good. So good.
Can we stop recording so I can go read that right now?
And you said that in one of our other videos. No, we have to finish this.
I remember that little part in the book, and yes. I didn't realize there was another book about it. Oh my gosh.
And it's so good. Like edge of my seat. Good. Could not put it down. But it is dark. And I think for me, psychological thrillers that have me wondering what's going on, that feels very dark to me sometimes. So yeah. So.
All right. My next one is Ashley Jade's The Devil's Playground series. There's 2 books, so I think it's more of a duet than a series.
I'm laughing because I made Mandy read this.
Yes. She tricked me because she told me it was a stepfather age gap romance, and I'm like, sign me up. My notes were, what did I just read? With some swear words in there. So the stepfather, Koyn, he wants to be mayor. Eden's mom has passed away. He agrees that she can live with him. Basically, if she just kind of behaves herself, she can live there. He is like focused on being mayor, but she has had like the hots for him for a while. She thinks he's the only person that actually loves her or cared for her. Her mother was very cold to her, like very cold. The mother is just horrible. We find out throughout the 2 books, like just horrific things that the mom was doing that we don't really know, and Eden didn't even really know were happening. Eventually we get more of Koyn's backstory. Another character named Damien is introduced, and Eden is kind of thrown in the middle of all of this, but Koyn's main goal is like squeaky clean record. I can't have anything to do with my stepdaughter because I'm going to be mayor. And he's only 27, she's 18. So not a significant age gap, but because he was married to her mom, which was a total business arrangement type situation, this would be like very scandalous, obviously, you know, because he'd been her stepfather for several years, I think, before her mom passed away.
Yeah.
I was super confused on who to root for, who I liked. I'm like, oh, age gap stepfather. I'm like totally focused, like this is where the book is going to go. And then I'm like, wait a minute. This Damien guy. And then I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
Koyn.
I remember getting those Marco Polos and phone calls where you were like, what? Who? But I like this one. But wait, no. Yeah, that was fun.
Like every like 10 minutes, I'm like, never mind. Basically, this is a mind thing.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely messes with your mind. You don't really know who you should be rooting for.
You don't know who to believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of different stories going on about the same events that are happening.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 of them are very intertwined. So there is some male in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 stars for me for both books. Even though
it was 5 for me. I loved it.
Yeah, it was a great ride.
The next dark read that I have is actually a series. It's not a series, it's a trilogy. So you have to read all 3 books. So it is by Celia Aaron, and it is her Cloister series or Cloister trilogy. So you have the Maiden, Church, and the Prophet. So we're just going to talk about the Maiden because obviously I can't talk about anything else without throwing it all off or like giving you all the spoilers. But we're going to go with the Maiden here. So this trilogy is about a girl named Delilah. Delilah's sister joined a cult. I think it was roughly a year before. It wasn't very long before. I can't remember the time frame, but she joined this cult and to be a maiden for this cult. And she died, and it was under mysterious circumstances while she was within this group. So Delilah decides that she needs to find answers. She needs to find out what happened to her sister. So she joins this group. It's called Heavenly Ministries, and she agrees to be a maiden. And so this is like a year-long commitment to go through like this training to be a maiden. And you have to be a virgin to do this. And basically what happens is you are being trained to be a wife to a guy within this cult of people. Once you get in there, you are like locked in. We're talking like barbed wire, the whole nine. The prophet is a creepy dude with evil intentions, and we can tell that from the beginning. So the maidens, so there's like a group of these girls, and when they get in there, they are assigned a protector. And so this is somebody who's really high up in the organization. It's a man that's high up in the organization, and your protector gets to keep you and train you at night until you are assigned to your husband. They are not allowed to have penetrative sex. So because these girls are supposed to be virgins, right, when they get their husband, but they're allowed to do everything else. And so she gets assigned to the prophet's oldest son, who is Adam. And he has his own evil intent, and he has his own thing going on. And this is one of those where you've got like questions about what's really happening throughout the whole series. Very, very dark. I wasn't really prepared for the amount of weird stuff that was done to these girls during the day to prepare them for their husbands. If that was the stuff I had to go through to be prepared for a husband, I'd still be single. Let's put that out there. There's a lot of sexual odd things that happen to them. But I gave this 5 stars. I loved the series. I really like Celia Aaron's writing. As you'll see, I have another Celia Aaron on this thing. She can do dark and dirty, and she does do dark and dirty.
My next book is Pawns in the Bishop Game by Emilia Fenn. This is part of her Checkmate series. And when I was looking for some of my dark romances for this, I realized I want to go back and read the series. Like, I had forgotten about it. We were on vacation when I read it, and so I just didn't go in and mark more books on my TBR and totally forgot. So I'm going to go back and read some more of it. This was a 4-star read for me. This is about Koyn and Jess. Jess is a almost lawyer. She works for her friend who's a lawyer. So I think she's like a paralegal, but she's getting ready to take the bar. So she has like basically no life outside of her job and preparing for the bar exam. Koyn is working at this club that has fighting, drugs, sex, like everything happens at this club. Like, it's just a really bad place. There's like the boss who's in charge, and his job is basically to make sure his boss never gets in trouble. But it's all this illegal things that are happening there. And the law firm that Jess works for, it is working with the police department and trying to build a case against this whole organization and bring them down, especially the main guy. And so Jess goes to the club to try and get some information, and she's immediately attacked in the alley. There's like an order just to kill her. Koyn goes against that order and actually saves her and kills the guy who's also works at the same place he does. He kills the guy who attacks her. And this just kind of starts off a chain of events, because Koyn is supposed to be this hard ass who doesn't really value life in that sense. Like, and so that he does, this is like, ooh, what's going on here? So this is their relationship. They kind of begin this secret relationship. And there's a lot of major twists in this book. There's some very dark themes. It sets it up for the next books to probably even be darker than what this book was. There was a lot of crying on my end, but it was really good. I think you can kind of see some of the twists that are going to happen, but it was still really good. I loved it. And like I said, I wrote a note to go back and read some of the next books, but there are definitely some dark themes in there.
So then the other book that I have for you is Koyn by Kay Webster. So this Kay Webster can do some dark. She knows how to do dark. This is a part of an MC series where it's the Royal Bastards MC series, where a lot of authors like contribute to this. So you have the Royal Bastards, like this one is Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then like I have some here behind me that were done by Misty Walker that are in a different location. So each author had like a different location for their MCs, but it's a really good series to read all these different authors. But this one is about Koyn. His name actually is Jared Koynikov, and the very first chapter is very, very hard to stomach. His wife and young daughter are actually murdered in the first chapter, and so obviously triggers. But then we fast forward 10 years. In the time that his wife and daughter are killed, after that, he starts up this MC to get revenge and to get vengeance on those who harmed his family. And so he's living, I mean, this is violent. This is one of the most violent MCs that I've ever read about. So very, very violent. So he's out there hunting down the men responsible. Then all of a sudden he meets this girl named Hadley. She is like she's living on the street. She's running from her past. She was a pageant queen at one point in time. And when he sees her, he thinks she looks exactly like his daughter, or what his daughter would have looked like had she gotten to that age. There is a big age gap in here. I can't remember the difference, but there is quite an age gap in here. And he sees her, he finds out who, you know, what her situation is. He promises to get her back to her father. She's trying to get back to her family. In the meantime, he takes her to his compound until that can happen. And because they're still looking for all these bad guys and all these things are happening. And things progress from there with them. I will say this book, like I said, it's dark, but there's a little bit daddy kink in here. She calls him daddy. I have feelings about that, and they're not very positive, but still very good. I just have a hard time with the daddy thing, but I think a lot of people do. But he promises to keep her safe until he can get her back to her family, and then it all goes from there. So there's 3 books in this series. I've read the first 2. I have not read the third, but good. Very dark. I think I gave it 4 stars is what I gave it.
Next book is Deadly Illusions by Kathy Lockheart. It was a 4-star read for me. It's marketed as an emotional romantic suspense novel. It's about Jenna and Damien. Jenna was in an abusive relationship, and she ends up at a gym that Damien runs. And it's like a mixed martial arts type fighting gym. And he notices her bruises, and there's kind of some insta love, and their relationship progresses pretty quickly. He also has some dark secrets that he doesn't want her to know about. And then I really wish there would have been more development between the 2 of them, because it kind of picks up pretty quickly. So there are a lot of plot twists in this book. I found that some of them were just like disappointing heartbreak, and I'm like, why did the author have to do this to us in this book? But I read the author's note at the end, and it made the book so much more powerful to me, and just why she chose to do certain things that she did. So in the moment of the book, I was like, why are you doing this to us? But after reading that, I was like, oh my gosh. And so it really made the book more powerful to me. But it's definitely got some dark themes going on with that ex-boyfriend that's abusive. So
the other book that I have is called Master of Salt and Bones, and it's by Keri Lake. This is definitely more of a gothic type romance. So as far as being dark, it's very twisty turny. You have, I remember being like, again, on the edge of my seat the whole time trying to figure it out. So this is about Lucius Blackthorn and Isadora. So Lucius lives in this seaside town in this big old castle, and he's known as the Devil of Bone Salt. So the town is called Bone Salt, and so he's known as the Devil of Bone Salt. It's believed that there is a double murder to his name, like he's believed to have committed a double murder at one point in time. There's all this mystery around him. He's got scars on one side of his face. Because there's like rumors that he like survived this horrific like fire or some crazy thing, and that's where the scars came from. But there's a lot of mystery to what's going on with him. So Isadora accepts a job at his estate as a companion to his ailing mother. Now the ailing mother doesn't speak. She's just I think she's had a stroke, if I remember right, but like a pretty severe one where there's no speech. She really just kind of sits in a wheelchair all day. And honestly, she creeped me the hell out. There was just something about her, the way she wrote her. There was just something about her that just didn't sit right with me from the beginning of the book. Isadora, Lucius is very attracted to Isadora. Like in the beginning, like she can play the piano by she can't read notes. She plays by sound, just plays. However you call that. She plays by ear. That's what it's called. She plays by ear. And he likes to listen to her play the piano. She'll play it for the mom and that kind of stuff. The mom has like a room full of dolls. That enough should freak everybody out, a room full of dolls. So there's a lot of mystery to this one. There's a lot of like, you're questioning yourself the whole time. You're questioning what you're like, you're always trying to figure it out. Like you're trying to figure out what's really going on in this situation. And then when you think you have it figured out, you don't. This one was just, she's in this big creepy mansion full of dolls. That enough should be dark. I'm telling you right there, like Nope. My grandma used to collect them dolls. I get it 100%. So I actually gave this 5 stars when I read it. It was a definite favorite of the year when I read it that year. So check that one out for sure.
My next book is Play Along by T.L. Swan. I love T.L. Swan, and this was definitely a different read from her. I would definitely say it's a dark read. It was a 4-star for me.
It was a 5-star for me. I loved it.
This is about Rochelle, who discovers her boyfriend is cheating with her best friend, who's also her roommate, and she catches them together at a club, and she's devastated, hysterically crying, and she just tries to like get out of there. So she runs out the nearest exit that she can find, which puts her out into this dark alley, and she witnesses a murder. So talk about a really bad night. So she witnesses this murder, and the people who commit the murder realize that she just saw what happened. So they throw her in their trunk and take off. She wakes up on a cargo ship. And she's like, oh my gosh, she doesn't know though that she's on a cargo ship when she first wakes up. So she's trying to like get away, and then she realizes she's trapped on this ship and kind of starts to panic. Mac is there, and Mac, it's really hard to tell what type of guy Mac is when the book first starts, because Jessica's like, read this book, it's so good, but Mac doesn't come off like a good guy. He kind of just throws her literally to the wolves of these men who are going to just decide to have their way with her. And then eventually he comes to her rescue, brings her back to his cabin, and tells her, play along, and tries to like protect her. And there's a lot of stuff happening. There's some dark things happening. There's like definitely some mystery of like, who is Mac? What is happening? Who's looking for her? Is anybody looking for her? Because her boyfriend and best friend were hooking up. So she's stuck on this cargo ship. So she doesn't know like what to do, how to get off of it. Like, and it's a crazy story from T.L. Swan, but it definitely has T.L. Swan's brilliance in writing. And definitely you do get that love story from it. You just don't know where it's going to come or how, like, you just don't know what's going to happen. And so you just have to read along while she plays along.
Next read. This is the darkest one that I have on my list. This is dark. This is like the darkest of dark. So this is Sick Fucks by Tillie Cole. F-U-X. But yes, Sick Fucks by Tillie Cole. This book, oh my gosh, when I say check triggers, I am not joking. Like, I'm looking at you guys, I am not joking. There is things with children in this book. Check those triggers. So this is the story of Ellis Earnshaw and Heathen James. So Ellis and Heathen meet when they are children. Who names their little boy Heathen, by the way? I mean, come on. Anyhow, this is my Mystic book copy. So Mystic box copy, isn't it gorgeous? I mean, look at this. I have to show you this real quick before we really get into it. So this is, I mean, look, isn't that gorgeous?
That is.
Okay.
I love it.
So anyhow, they meet as children on Ellis's family estate, and they're complete opposites. He's like all wearing black. He's like an Undertaker, and she loves Alice in Wonderland. She has her little bunny rabbit. Like, she is obsessed with all things, you know, fun and bright and colorful, especially tea parties and Alice in Wonderland. And as we see them, you know, get a little bit older, or they develop this friendship, this unlikely friendship, but then something completely horrific and tragic happens to them. And I don't even know how Tillie Cole thought of this stuff, because it was sickening, but it was good. Anyhow, horrific things happen to them. They are separated. So now we are 11 years later, and Heathen is coming back for Ellis. He's coming back to get Ellis and to get revenge on those that hurt them. And when he gets to the Earnshaw estate to get Ellis, she is locked in a prison of her own making. She is locked in her own mind, and she calls him Rabbit, and it's like she thinks she's Alice, and she is definitely locked away. And so while they go on this crazy journey of revenge and vengeance, he's trying to bring out Ellis the whole time. And you have this question of, will you get the real Ellis, or are you going to get what he calls Dolly? He calls her Dolly, because she's like a doll. She's like a living doll. And so it's like he wakes her up, but does he wake her up fully? And so it is gory, it is gross, it has all the good stuff, but so good. Tillie Cole can do dark. Tillie Cole can do dark very well. Very, very well. She's like the queen of dark. So sick fucks.
My next book is called Sugar and Skulls. It's by L.M. Terry. It is an MC dark romance. Ooh. It is about Jesse and Dirk, and it has an age gap, like a pretty nice age gap too. So I'm pretty sure that's probably why I read the book.
Probably, knowing you.
So Jessie has just had a really, really rough life, and she's in foster care when Dirk sees her and sees her foster brother trying to pull some stuff. So obviously check charts on this. And he takes care of the situation, and he tells Jessie, sometimes you just have to be mean. And Jessie kind of starts to take that by heart to protect her stuff. And some really uncomfortable, horrible, dark things happen to this poor girl as she continues to grow up. Dirk loses her location, and so he can't keep an eye on her anymore, and eventually he ends up finding her, and it turns out somebody he knew actually had been kind of watching over her. But her life is it's been really, really rough. And Dirk is actually close friends with her dad. Her dad is in prison, and that's why Dirk has been watching over her, but she doesn't know her dad, doesn't know anything, there's just a lot of mystery going on, and things kind of unravel. And then it turns out that Dirk's cousin's been like kind of watching over her. And just really, really bad things just continue to happen to Jessie throughout the book. And Dirk is like trying to step in and help, but fate just kind of keeps keeping that from happening. So really the book is just a really dark story about horrific things that happen to Jessie. And then eventually we kind of get to a romantic love story in the end, but the majority of the book is just really dark things that happen. But I really enjoyed it. Still, it was a 4 for me. I always love a good age gap romance, but if you're going in this for the age gap romance, you're might be disappointed because you're going to get a very dark story instead before that happens. But I was still hooked in, page turning as fast as I could through the story. So it was very good, but it is very dark.
Then I have Knotted by Pam Godwin. So Pam, there's 3 books in this series. This is the first one. This is a cowboy romance, but is a dark cowboy romance. I love Pam Godwin. I devour anything she writes. I think she is an amazing author, and she can do that. Dark. She can definitely do dark. She's got some dark stuff. So this is the trail. They call this series the Trails of Sin. And so this one is about Connor, who is the female character. I've never heard a female named Connor, but that's her name. And then Jack. And Connor and Jack are childhood sweethearts. They have been together since they were very, very young. And they are absolutely in love. And on Connor's 16th birthday, they decide that they're finally going to have sex. She's going to lose her virginity to Jack. And so Jack takes her out on the property, out in the, out on the farm, to a spot that's secluded, that's by a stream of some kind. And he's got it all set up, candles, the whole 9. He's got the thing set up. He also brings a little bit of rope because he kind of likes that idea of tying her up, and so does she. And they get out there. Things, start to progress a little bit when they're attacked. and this all happens like in the very beginning. This is not spoilery, but they're attacked, and she is tied up, or he's already tied her up for their playtime. And so the people who attack her really don't have to do much to restrain her. She's already restrained. So they restrain Jack and force him to watch as they rape her and take her virginity. So once this happens, there is a blood pact made between Jack, his two friends. I think one's a brother, but they're all very close, and her. And she ends up leaving town. And then the story picks up. Years later, she returns to honor their teenage pact that they'd made that night. And when she gets back, there's still that chemistry between the two of them. They still really love each other, but she hasn't dealt with her trauma at all. And so Jack goes about helping her heal just in a very interesting way. Because he also has some interesting proclivities after being through all of that with her. And so it's very unconventional the way he helps her heal, but so good. So that is not it. I loved all three of the books in the series. This was a 5-star for me. All three of them were. I really liked the last one, but yep, it was some good stuff.
Next dark read is a series, the Hades Hangman series by Tillie Cole.
Yay!
It is I've read several of the books. I made it about halfway or a little over halfway through the series, I think. And I took a break from it. And so it's actually one of my goals is to come back and finish that series here in the next few months. So I'm going to talk about the first book. It's called It Ain't Me, Babe. It is a solid 5-star review from me. This is about May and Styx. May grows up in a really strict cult environment. We don't know a ton of what it is. It's just really, we just know it's really awful. Definitely check triggers, because the things that as the series progresses that you find out are going on in this cult are it's like, some of it was hard for me to even read. It's like pretty disturbing. Tillie Cole actually has a lot of information on how she came about being able to write about this cult. She did a lot of research. So then thinking about that this is based in research is also makes it even more disturbing. So some horrific events are, well, let's back up. May and Styx actually meet when Styx is wondering, he has a severe speech impediment, so he does not talk much. He talked to, I think, his dad, his best friend, and then he's out in the woods for reasons you'll find out if you read the book. Excuse me. And he ends up at the fence. And May is having like the worst day of her life when she's at the fence on the other side in her cult. And they have this instant connection. They're very young. They're little kids at this time. I think May is 8 and he's 12 or something. They have this instant connection though. And he is actually able to speak to her, which throws him. And then they end up, there's the fence. So this is like their childhood thing that happens. He always remembers her. She remembers him because he was like this little tiny light of hope, or, in this like really horrific dark day of her life. So we fast forward, some horrible things happen and she is able to get away. And she ends up, just by pure coincidence, at the back of their MC land. I don't know what you call it.
Compound. It's their compound.
Thank you. At the MC compound. And when somebody alerts him that there's like this beat up, almost dead girl out there, he goes out there and he instantly recognizes her eyes. And so this is their love story, because Styx has been very closed off his entire life. He doesn't talk to people because of the speech impediment. He's the president of the MC. And so his life is just the MC and keeping people away and being as bad as he can, basically. And so she has lived this, and I would say it's a very sheltered life because she knows nothing of what the real world is like, but the things that have happened to her are beyond horrific. And so this is him, like he brings her into the club and they get her medical help and kind of nurse her back to health. And then their relationship starts from there. It is probably one of the best romances that I can think of for like just how much their two worlds are so different, yet they just love each other, basically, even though they're both so broken. So it's very dark. Horrific things happen in this series. I cannot stress that enough. But it is so wonderfully written and so powerful that I highly recommend this series if you can get past that. So you want to check triggers, because this would definitely not be the read for everyone.
My last book is it is the Acquisition series. So it's a trilogy as well. There's another book, a fourth book in the series that is about a brother, but the first three books are about the same couple. So this is by Celia again, but the first book is called Counselor. And so this takes place in Louisiana, like in the heart of Louisiana. You have these old families from old money that live down in there, and they really run the show, right? Like you get that good old boy, we're the wealthy elite that run everything in this state or in the South kind of situation. And we meet Sinclair. Sinclair is a counselor. He's a lawyer, and when the book first starts, we have Stella, and her dad is about to go to prison. Sinclair is the counselor sending him to prison, and it's for something that he is supposedly innocent of. And Sinclair uses his position against Stella, and he gets her to agree to give herself to him for a year to do whatever he wants with, as long as he keeps her dad out of jail. So she takes like half a minute, half a day or whatever to decide this. And she's like, okay. Well, come to find out, he needs her because there is a competition that happens every 10 years or so between several of the elite families. And this person is their acquisition. So he becomes her acquisition. And the acquisitions, I think there's three in this book. So there's three acquisitions, there's three families, and they're battling the head of the families that have these acquisitions are battling for the right to be the head of this good old boy organization that runs everything. They get a say in whose families are in, whose families are out. They get a say in whose business, takes off and whose business crumbles. So they control all of that. And so Stella becomes Sinclair's acquisition. So over the course of a year, she has to go through these trials with Sinclair. And there's a lot of secrets involved as to why they're doing this, what each trial is. She meets a maid in their house who's been through it before, so she tries to help her. There's definitely, like, the huge theme throughout this is slavery. She is his slave. The other two acquisitions are technically slaves to these families. They're people like you and I, but they're forced to go through these trials, and they have to go through are absolutely insane. And I remember the whole time reading this is a 5-star. This whole series was a 5-star for me. It was very, very dark. Obviously, I like way dark. But as I'm reading this, they would talk about a new trial coming up or what was going to happen. And my thought was, how is she going to get out of this? How is this going to get better? How is Sinclair going to protect her? Like, how? The big question was how at every book. So the first two obviously end on a cliffhanger. The last one ends on an HEA, but it was so good. It had me like just wanting to devour the next book every time I was reading it. So that is all of our dark romance recommendations that we have for you guys. Let us know in the comments below what your favorite dark romance is. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button as well.
Yes. So comment below on any dark reads that you've read so we can have some more. I know we have more on our list, so we'll have more videos out. But if you have a favorite dark read, comment that below. Make sure you check back on Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays for new videos from Bestie Book Reviews.
All right. With that, we will see you guys in the next video.
Go read.
Go read.